All right, hello again, everyone, and welcome to the final half hour of this year's Cybersecurity Summit. I want to start just by thanking all of you for attending and for sticking through some of the technical challenges we've been facing. There's a lot of new stuff this year, and I think we've gotten through it pretty well, but I still appreciate your patience. For this last 30 minutes, the goal is really to hear all of your thoughts about this year's summit. The hope here is that we're going to have just an open discussion where you are able to talk about common themes that you saw in the talks, issues that you think are popping up that people are raising, conversations about like the platform, you know, Whova and Zoom, and how the whole virtual summit worked, how you thought it worked, ways it could be improved, really just anything relating to the summit. The goal here is to give you all an opportunity to speak and hopefully not listen to me talk too much. So, and again, I think we mentioned at the start, but there was a lot new this year, and this might not be the last virtual summit. We're recognizing that's a possibility, and so we really want to make sure that if we do one of these again, that we improve it in every way possible. So with that, I'm going to open up the discussion. I know that people have been pretty reluctant to actually use the raise hand and you know, physically speak, but I would really appreciate it. I mean, it's the last half hour. Otherwise, it's just going to be me. You have to listen to me for roughly 30 minutes, you know, 25 now, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And I would much rather hear what all of you have to say. And I will make sure that we close this off at 5 p.m. sharp. I don't want to be holding you guys over any longer. So I'm gonna be looking at that participants list, and oh, fantastic! We've got our first hand. Thank you, Kathy. So I'm gonna unmute you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Scott. I just thought I'd maybe start things off with a couple points that I recall from last year that were identified as takeaways that really continue to resonate and come across this year. First, and this is probably not surprising to anybody, there's a continued emphasis on collaboration and knowledge share within the cybersecurity community. That's, you know, continues to be important and fostered and encouraged by NSF. Another point that was emphasized last year was an interest and utility in federated identity management, and it was apparent that continues to be an important focus ongoing this year and mentioned in several of the projects. Last year, there was discussion of diversity and the importance of that to successful projects, and I think that has just been emphasized even more strongly this year.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, one of the things I want to mention is because the goal of this is to be more of a discussion, that I'm much more open to unmuting multiple people at once and letting a whole bunch, like several people talk. So it doesn't have to be just one person monologues and then passes the mic. And we've got our second question. Fantastic. All right, passing the mic to Eric.
Yes, so I want to make a comment on the virtual conferencing. I think to embed the Zoom in the Whova had a lot of advantages. I took advantage of the community messages and the posting of positions and some of the discussions and some of the messaging, because you could see who the participants were. So I think all of that was very helpful. The transition between Zoom and Whova was a little clunky, but I guess that'll get improved over the years. I actually think there is something that we learned, and I would like to see if this community thinks the same thing, that we've learned with this whole pandemic, and that is that there is an aspect of conferences when they are virtual that definitely increases participation and is an equalizer in the sense of diversity and inclusion, because people who don't have the budgets to travel can most likely Zoom in anyway. And so I think there may be some aspect, even when we go back to more physical conferences, there is some aspect of trying to maybe have some conferences still virtual. And we need to think about that, because if you have a physical conference and there are some participants that are remote, they are second-class citizens, whereas now everybody is the same box on the screen. Yeah. So I think so as a comment, as a summary, I think the Whova extra thing is very useful and it's very important, because it recreates some of the things that you have by running into each other. It's not the same, obviously, but it is still good, and it's better than bare Zoom. But we need to think about continuing conferences like this in some virtual way, so that we remain inclusive and reach many people.
Yeah, that's a really great point. All right, I'll go ahead and on to our next raised hand, Victor Hazelwood.
Yeah, I just want to follow up with what Eric said. I did really like this format, and it kind of was like at a conference where you have to go between room and room, so you could have had simultaneous presentations going on at the same time. So having the agenda and all those things off to the side, so the embedded Zoom worked, from my perspective, worked pretty well. And so I agree a lot with what Eric was saying.
Great.
So, and having plenary and having different breakouts and having the ability to have some chats going on, I think is real value add for having a conference virtual. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's go on to Jerry.
Oh, aloha.
Aloha.
Yes, I did like this virtual conference. I slightly disagree. I think that there can be a way to integrate real conference and virtual people without making the virtual people feel like secondhand citizens. I mean, this thing is done in education with remote classrooms all the time. This shouldn't be rocket science. I really like actually the Whova. I didn't have any problems other than that short period this morning where there was a lot of lag, especially in the chat and Q&A. Other than that, it went smooth. My only thing improving, if this were only virtual, is it was highlighted in the birds of a feather / social thing, is there needs to be maybe some rooms that you could call like the hallway, where people could pop in, pop out all they want. Maybe they are still muted by default initially, but everyone can unmute themselves, and we can still have the experience of those hallway conversations, free-form conversations without anyone in charge of directing into only specific topics, where people might not go into those rooms because they don't really have an interest in the particular topic, and still get that conference feel.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I like the idea of having that the hallway is a good name. All right, let's go on to our next raised hand, John. It should give you a dialogue prompt to unmute.
There we go. Okay, so I feel that the Whova worked fantastic for the presentations that were longer like than 15 minutes. But I think for the lightning talks, I think it would have been effective to include them in the same room, so that you didn't have to switch between the lightning talks, because they happen so fast. 5-minute lightning talk, sometimes Whova wouldn't load for like 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and also it didn't help that I think most of the Whova kind of lag problems just happened to coincide with the lightning talks, which were also the fastest turnaround. I don't see any more raised hands at this second, so I'll use this as an opportunity. That question Oh, actually, wait, no, we got a raised hand. I don't have to talk. Fantastic. Go back to Victor.
So one of the other things, based on what was just said, you know, having the hallway conversations, the other thing I notice about Zoom, because I have Zoom Pro, is that when it's embedded inside of an application like Hoova, you can still do your own Zoom. So you can actually have two Zooms going at the same time. So if you wanted to have this side, everybody's saying, hey, I want the hallway conversation or the side conversation. When it's done this way, you can still do Zoom Pro and do your own Zoom on the side, which you can't do two Zooms at the same time if it's not embedded. So that's actually kind of an interesting take on that. So if someone wanted to, you know, you can see the attendees, you could reach out to someone with a chat and say, here's a Zoom, hey, hop on right quick. And you could have this quick conversation just between a set of people because the Zoom is embedded inside of Hoova. If it wasn't embedded, you wouldn't be able to do that.
That's a really interesting point. Yeah, I found because of my responsibilities that I always had two things open because I had to be in the prep meeting for the next Zoom while also keeping track of, you know, where's the previous Hoova, you know, so we don't start the next presentation too quickly. So yeah, being able to do those side conversations would be really interesting. One of the points, oh wait, we got another question. All right, we'll pass the mic to Ryan.
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
All right. So when we gave our training session, I at least noticed that doing things this way through Hoova and through Zoom, found it to be a little bit more difficult to kind of get into a rhythm of engagement with the participants in the training session. I'd be curious to hear from attendees if they have any thoughts about how that could be done better, how it could be improved to try to get better engagement from the rest of the group who's in a longer session like that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I would open that up to anyone anyone attending right now, how they felt about engagement in the trainings. I know that when I was giving one of my section of a training, the obvious benefit was the larger audience, but it did feel like audience participation was harder. The interactivity just wasn't quite there. So if anyone has thoughts on that, feel free to chime in. All right, Steve? Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. All right, now Steve.
Yep. So yeah, I think, so one of the things, and it's a tricky thing in these large conferences, you know, is looking at some of those security settings about the muting and the unmuting and things like that. You know, I think, you know, during like, you know, plenaries or the keynotes or things like that, you know, that probably keeping the settings as they are makes a degree of sense. You know, but I'd look and say, hey, in some of the trainings, or as Jerry suggested in the hallway and things like that, having a little free, you know, a little more free form so that there's less, you know, tracking and moderation, you know, so that if I have a question and I raise my hand or, you know, or can unmute, you know, I think as a community, we probably have a pretty reasonable, we've practiced reasonably to this point on how not to step on each other too badly. And so I think if it gets a little more dynamic that way, that might help some of that engagement. At least, you know, for things like training sessions or places where you need that, you know, if you can reduce friction on letting people, you know, kind of manage the process, that might help. Just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, either that or we have to get really good at, you know, clicking blue hands. I'll pass the mic to Jerry.
Yeah, because that Jerry guy hasn't talked much. Yeah, no, I was just to say, because, you know, speaker and participant, I think this did a pretty good job with that. And I think the combination of adding, being able to type questions versus raise hand and say things out loud has given an opportunity for people who are much more shy to you know, to feel confident enough to go ahead and ask a question, where if this were in a physical room and they had to walk up to a microphone and ask a question, that I don't think they would have. But having said that, I do maybe agree with what they said, that maybe when it gets to like a Q&A session at the end, if there was ability to, release the hounds and allow everyone to unmute their mics at will to have free conversations, I think that would help get that feeling of that free-form conversation going on sometimes at the end of the talks. And then just in case other people haven't seen, Zoom just announced a new feature, ability to allow control over breakout rooms by other people. So you could make one of those hallway rooms and throw in a bunch of breakout rooms, and people can freely move between all the breakout rooms freely all they want, as a way of even making more corners to have conversations.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're definitely right that there's ways we can harness Zoom that we haven't quite taken advantage of yet. All right,
Yeah,
let's.
but I think releasing the mics is the biggest thing at the end.
Yep, and I believe we have that option, but we just we weren't using it, and in the future we probably could. All right, I will go to Larry.
Let's see. We've used this in various conference forums before, and we found that Zoom has a breakout room capability that we've used in the past quite successfully on other conferences. And that seems to alleviate some of the issues of people being able to bounce back and forth between the sessions. I don't know if that capability can be used with Hoover or not, but Zoom itself has that capability.
Yeah, yeah. Breakout rooms would definitely be valuable. We'll have to look into seeing if we can use that with Hoover. All right, Carolyn.
Actually, to go off of Jerry's point, one of the things I think that this virtual setting of being able to chat or talk helped with the situation is on the diversity inclusion side, we are able to collect a whole lot more people who potentially are taking care of their kids or crazy things going on around their house that, for example, okay, I'm participating, but I'm also not leaving behind my family responsibilities.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. One question that I have for the group, and then I'll pass the mic to Eric, is about preferred session lengths. We had a comment that the lightning sessions were a little too fast with the transition, so maybe bunching them together. But I mean, so we had some 30-minute presentations. We had some that were closer to an hour. I wonder if some of those felt better. Also, the spacing of breaks. And I'll pass back to Eric. Sorry, once more.
Jesus, it just keeps. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sorry about that.
I just wanted to link back to the conversation before about the latest release of Zoom that came out yesterday actually does have freely moving in and out of breakout rooms. So if we would have known this, we could have organized things like the different lightning sessions with rooms that are ready to go and people can walk in without having to kill one session and start another one. So I think Zoom and other platforms are learning a lot. So and some of the feedback that we provide today, they are observing and they're building. So when we try to do this next year, whatever features we want to use for virtual conferencing will be improved, and then people are learning a lot. Actually, I'm looking forward to supercomputing in November because they also have decided to go virtual, and the organizing committee has made it a mission of them for themselves to say, look, we are supercomputing. If anybody can organize a virtual conference at a big scale, we should be able to one. So I think there's going to be a number of innovative elements, and vendors, of course, are willing to help and show that off. So I think we're learning a lot about improving virtual conferencing. Yep,
that's a really good point. I would also be interested to hear if people have attended other conferences that did anything like very different that you thought worked well. All right, let's go to Larry. Or Lenny, was it?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So I just have an issue that for people that's coming from different time zones. For example, for me in California, maybe don't have time for the lunch. So that may be an issue for the future.
Okay. Yeah. Good feedback. All right, so we're almost at the top of the hour. Yeah, I realized the conversation steered a bit more towards the platform than towards the content. We are still very interested in hearing your content takeaways, and you can use Whova to do that. But because we want to get you out of here at 5, and I know Vaughn has a couple of remarks that he would like to make, I'm going to see if I'm ready to pass the mic to him.
Hey, Scott, can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you very much. And I just want to thank everyone for coming to this year's summit and really working with us to make all of this work. One nice benefit is I've enjoyed this afternoon session outside, which has been quite lovely. I hope some of you were able to do likewise. So first, let me thank Scott and Jeanette for all of their work emceeing. I know that had some particularly challenging moments this year with the technology and other things. So they really just did an amazing job. So Scott and Jeanette, thank you so much for your roles in doing that. I had a whole slide of people to thank. I'll echo all those thanks again. You know, Diana and the organizing committee, Jim Marsteller and the program committee. This was a really great program this year. All sorts of fascinating talks. I really enjoyed it. And I'll just say I look forward to seeing you next year, and stay tuned for when and where that is going to be. We're going to leave that up in the air a little bit longer this year than normal to see if hopefully something will settle down. But really looking forward to it. And with that, thank you, everybody, and I'll pass it back to you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks. So I said I'll make sure we're all out of here at 5, and we still have a couple minutes left. So if anyone has additional thoughts, things they things they just want to chime in with, we've still got a little bit of time. I'd be particularly interested to hear if anyone has thoughts on the content. I know I saw one comment go by that our keynote, Kate Starbird, mentioned or said, "I didn't realize I was in cybersecurity," and that's a pretty profound statement. And there's, I think, an interesting question of who else out there has either is having an impact or potentially could have an impact on this field, and that we just don't know about, and that they don't know about. They don't know themselves. All right, I'll pass the mic to Jeanette.
Yes, Scott. Thanks. To Kate's comment, I am an education outreach and training coordinator. And as a member of Trusted CI, I am trusted with access to our Google Drive, to our website, to various assets that we want to keep secure. And so, yes, I am, even though I don't work hands-on in security, I am entrusted with a lot of assets. And so everyone who basically works in an organization at whatever level, if they have access to an asset, they are involved in security, and it's for their benefit that they learn about how to protect those things, how to use password managers, etc.
Yeah, it's a really good comment. Yeah, and it ties into a theme I think I heard from the bits of the presentations I was able to hear. Was there was a lot of talk about multidisciplinary interactions with cybersecurity, and creating multidisciplinary teams, or making sure that everyone's involved in decision making. So yeah, definitely all hands on deck. All right, it's the last 2 minutes. If anyone wants to sneak in a final comment, this is your chance. Crickets. Cricket. Oh, there we go. Jerry.
Yeah. I just would say out loud something I typed in. I'd really like to see more, I think, on the social human aspects of cybersecurity. During one of the last RSA conferences, they focused the whole thing on the human, but I'd just like to say I really enjoyed that talk about the social networking stuff, right? But there's a whole lot more that we could be talking about, because the humans are the one things that we probably find the hardest to patch. So, we could have a little bit more discussions around some of that, and I think that would be very interesting to many people, and bring in the multidisciplinary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a good comment to leave on. So I agree. We should engage in social stuff more. Thank you all for coming to this year's summit. Thank you for putting up with me for the past 2 days. I hope you have been able to tolerate it. And we really hope to see you again in future interactions in the community and at future summits in future years. And so with that, I'll say goodbye for now.